So that's the Prime Minister speaking and addressing Trinidad and Tobago's parliament. Remember, this is the Prime Minister's first visit to the country and by an Indian Prime Minister to the Caribbean nation since 1999. And this comes at the invitation. And of course, he was received by Prime Minister Kamala Persad Bisesar of the country along with 38 ministers and of course other members of the parliament, along with being given a ceremonial guard of honor as well in that country. Ladies and gentlemen, and now some startling revelations from Operation Syndur have come in. Well, Indian Army's Deputy Chief Lieutenant General Rahul P.R. Singh has exposed a Pakistan-China-Turkey nexus, with China feeding real-time intel and Turkey supplying drones to Pakistan during that conflict. Now, this anti-India axis, leveraging 81% Chinese military hardware, turned Pakistan into a live weapons lab. Well, those are some of the allegations that have been made today. The China-Pakistan-Turkey nexus during Operation Syndur, it holds significant geopolitical and strategic importance for India and the broader South Asian security landscape. Let's listen into what exactly did Lieutenant General Rahul R. Singh, the Deputy Chief of Army Staff, had to say in the day-to-day.
One border, two adversaries. So we saw Pakistan one side, but adversaries were two, and if I would say actually four or three actually. So Pakistan was the front face. We had China providing all possible support. And it's no surprise, because if you were to look at statistics, in the last 5 years, 81% of the military hardware that Pakistan is getting is all Chinese, 81% of that. So it's no surprise. And China, of course, the good old dictum, killed by a borrowed knife, 36 stratagems that China talks about, killed by a borrowed knife. So he would rather use the neighbor to cause pain than getting involved in the mud slinging match on the northern border. So that is what he's seen. And another thing that China perhaps has seen is that he's able to test his weapons against, say, various other weapon systems that are there. It's like a live lab which is available to. So it's a good. That is what is something we have to be very, very cognizant about. Again, Turkey also played a very important role in providing the type of support that was there. Bayraktar, of course, he's been giving from before. We saw numerous other drones also coming in.
Well, to discuss the other big story on the show, we are now joined by Major General retired Gigi Diwe. He's a war veteran, global strategist and a defense expert as well. And of course, joining him is Major General retired SBS Thana defense expert as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening on ET. Now, to you, Mr. Major Diwe. The nexus was always unknown when we speak about China, Turkey and Pakistan, and today also it's been made clearer by, of course, officials, Indian officials, and then you also had Munir meeting Trump. What does this really say about the nexus that's been unfolded today and that's been brought to light about India's security landscape and the kind of challenges that become even more pronounced?
Well, Sumita, this axis has been in the making for, I think, last about 3 decades or so, because I can say it with certain degree of credibility, because I was defense attaché in China and I've seen that how Pakistan Army and People Liberation Army, how they have very close relations, and China and Pakistan have strategic partnership. So therefore, this should not come as a surprise, because, as I said, that this has been work in progress for last about 3.5 decades. And of course, Turkey is not a new joining, because Turkey has been supplying weapons and the naval platforms to Pakistan. So as we see in the larger geopolitical scene or geopolitical architecture, the new axis that has developed is, of course, China in the lead, Russia there, then Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, and of North Korea. Now, this is the axis that is actually emerged. Now, specifically coming to Syndur, only thing it manifested more clearly. I mean, there's no gray areas left now, that we have been talking of, two fronts, and that is now actually become reality, that today when we look at our geopolitics, when we look at our periphery, when we look at our security, we see Pakistan and China as one front. And that's exactly what has happened. And we used to always think, and as a planners, that China would never come very directly. They will always be doing proxy. But in this op Sindur, China came very directly. In fact, they were providing complete satellite imagery. They overnight their cargo planes came with PL-15, and same thing with Turkey. Number of cargo planes landed up carrying their latest drones, and almost 400 Songers were also delivered. So what I'm trying to say is that this nexus was always there. It has manifested now more clearly. There's no haziness left whatsoever. And we are going to see the nexus further strengthening. My two very important issues that I would flag, that today we need to see the capability of Pakistan and China through one lens. They cannot be seen indifferently because they will always be together whenever there is a next situation that develops. And secondly, the larger axis we are seeing, as you rightly brought out, that in this whole game, that new trilateral are emerging. We have Bangladesh and Pakistan and China meeting was held in China in Kunming. Then we have the another trilateral, that is the Turkey, Pakistan and China. So all I can say is that India needs to actually
Yes.
recalibrate its threat perceptions and accordingly need to prepare, because the threat today has multiplied, and this reality cannot be wished away. Sumita.
Absolutely, sir. This reality cannot be ignored anymore, given the fact that, this evil troika of China, Pakistan and Turkey has been exposed and has been made clear in front of everyone. So, Major General Astana, then what does India need to do so far as protecting its territories from multiple fronts, whether it's related to misinformation, whether it's related to, the economic sanctions or the economic controls that China is looking at putting? Of course, you have Turkey in the picture as well. And of course, then you have the defense angle as well.
Two things. One is that you have to do your capacity building, keeping in view the threat perception, which General Diwe was mentioning. And let me add a little more value to it. See, India is the only country in the world which has two belligerent neighbors. Both of them are nuclear powers and both of them are in collusion with each other. And with both of them, we have border issues. Now, this situation is not faced by anybody else in the world. This is the unique situation of India. So therefore, as was mentioned, we have to look this entire front as one front and the entire capacities of both as one major threat to be faced and to be, shall I say, to be countered. So in that context, our capacity building has to increase accordingly. And therefore, I would say that we need to be super fast in increasing our drone capabilities, digital capabilities in terms of, shall I say, procurements. We need to increase our defense budget. If NATO under threat is increasing it to 5%, we less than 2%, I don't think is good enough. We have taken too long to acquire the state-of-the-art aircrafts, and therefore now we are struggling with a situation where both sides, in both the fronts, we have the aircrafts which are a generation ahead of us. Although kudos to all the defense forces that with all the indigenous equipment, they have been able to bash the Chinese equipment and Pakistani equipment well. That's one part of it. But the question is that every time we need to have, unless we have the equipment with us, we may find it difficult to tackle the next round. The next issue is that many of, after Syndur, most of the channels and a whole lot of analysis has come wherein everybody is talking about the technology. Yes, there is no doubt that technology matters. And I think India, with the indigenous technology, did display a fair amount of integration, a fair amount of innovation. Right, but the basic issue is we also need a fair amount of manpower, a trained manpower, because whatever is happening on the line of actual control, you physically need people to man those borders. And Therefore, we can't do away with the shortage of manpower, or we can't have technology versus manpower debate is not applicable to us. We still need the manpower as
Right,
well
sir.
as
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that threat has become that much more pronounced now that we have, hostile neighbors all across us. Let me come to you on that point, Major General Gigi Dwivedi. When we talk about capacity building and, capacity expansion and capability expansion, most importantly, where does India immediately needs to focus on? And is there an immediate threat from the side of China, Turkey and Pakistan to sort of corner India?
Well, Sumita, when we talk about capacity building, we talk about comprehensive national power. I mean, that is the total power of the nation, which encompasses your military power, economic power, your political strength, your diplomatic alliances, all that is given. The point is, in today's world, in today's environment, a nation's fight is not only armed forces, the whole nations have to fight. Point number one. Second issue is that you rightly asked, where are the voids? I think we need to take a total holistic look. First and foremost, have a very clear cut national security strategy. We need to redefine our threats and we need to calibrate and prioritize the threats. Secondly, is we need to have doctrines because only with doctrines can you fight the adversary. We need to see what are the adversaries' doctrine, both the adversaries or both. I have the limited war doctrine. That means we are talking about limited wars. Even you see in Syndur, it are 4 days skirmish. So the point is we need to have very clear doctrine. After that, we need to build our capacities. Capacities means that we need to now take whole thing as a one front, the China front, the Pakistan front, and the two fronts have different characteristics. On the China front, the terrain is more mountainous, so it will require a different capacity building. On the Pakistan front, the plain is more plains, so therefore you require more mechanized forces. The point I'm trying to issue is that we need to accelerate our modernization. It cannot be just incremental, level up. It has to be total, deep-rooted transformation. The next point is that today you cannot fight with equipment which is not at par with the adversaries. Yes, morale, motivation, human factor all count, but you have to have matching equipment because you just saw how the wars of the future will be fought. They'll be fought in the cyber domain, they'll be fought in the aerial domain, and then they'll be fought on the ground and the seaboard. So therefore, it has the total capacity building. And two issues I wish to point out. See, our current spending budget need to get actually scaled up. This 2% is not going to do. We are not going to be able to meet the combined threat of two adversaries and the third, fourth in the lurking in the shadows. And second is our effort Atmanirbhar. See, it takes time for the country to build up ecosystem. It's going to take 10, 15 years before we can say that yes, we are self-dependent. Today, just imagine our Tejas frames are waiting for the engines from US. 4 F41444 engine is not yet come. So the frames are lying there. The point is China today has 200 fifth generation aircraft J-20. Our MCA is going to see the light of the day after a decade. So these are very serious voids. And we need to become very serious on this issue. I think the government has to get hands-on and get the country the required capability, because without capability, you will be always fighting with one step back. So my final point is take a good look at your threat perceptions, have a national security strategy, get your doctrines, get your defense modernization, and accelerate the whole process because bureaucratic hurdles need to be demolished because today we are in a real tight situation and until we get into the grips, I am afraid we will not be at par with the combined strength of our two adversaries. Sumita.
Absolutely, sir. So this war or the situation needs to be handled from multiple sides, like you rightly pointed out, increasing our capacities, of course, increasing the manpower, and of course on the misinformation and disinformation front as well, but most importantly on the diplomatic front as well. And I'll ask you, Major General Asthana, the final question on that. Do you think India has been able to achieve much with its outreach of Operation Syndur, with several countries, and how we've made that outreach? Do you think that has worked, and what more needs to be done to sort of make sure that diplomatically also we have good and tight relationships with the global world powers?
Certainly, as far as Op Syndur is concerned, we have achieved the aims which we had set for ourselves. And the aim was very clear. Initially, it was to destroy the terror network and the sponsors and their leaders, which was done very effectively. And subsequently, when they retaliated, then it was to give a very strong message to the military hierarchy of Pakistan that we can reach and destroy their military assets anywhere in Pakistan. And I think that message was also appropriately given. We used our technologies and whatever equipment we had very innovatively in a manner that we could integrate, and we could also find gaps in their air defenses. And we also exposed the Chinese equipment and the Turkish equipment and the Pakistani equipment and perhaps some of the Western equipment also towards its weaknesses, which is held by Pakistan. So that was a job very well done. But the question is, and as far as diplomacy is concerned, certainly I think the certain initiatives which were taken thereafter were quite okay. We also need to work on the battle of narratives, which is also become equally important. Maybe that if at 3:45 or 3:55, if we had decided that ceasefire will be there, then I think within 5 minutes or 10 minutes, if a tweet had gone from the Indian government, the whole exercise of perhaps convincing the rest of the world that it was not
Yes.
American sponsored would not have been there. That need would not have been there. So this is a lesson learned as far as the battle of narratives is concerned. Similarly, I think as far as our equipment profile is concerned, now we know that we need much more drones than what we were actually looking at. And the kind of capacities we have, industrial capacities, if we put everything to use, I think we can be one of the largest manufacturers of drones. And a fair amount of work is in progress on that issue as well. So I visualize that this is a work in progress, but certainly we need to take these threats very seriously, and we have to do our capacity building and capability development in that context, considering the newly developed threats and the preponderance of technology in the future warfare. Back to you.
Absolutely, sir. And with that, we also need to have the right partnerships, the right sourcing partners and collaborators as well globally when it comes to sort of sourcing weapons and these new age technologies and technological-led weapons. And of course, the drones, etc. as well. India it has its own drone policy as well, and it's giving a push to defense as well. We also heard Rajnath Singh speak with Pete Hegseth of the United States, and of course, that defense partnership that's progressing, but all of that needs to be put on the fast track. On that note, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us and discussing your perspectives on this big story.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, some news coming